So for anybody who doesn't know what the BHS is, what actually is it? What is their mission?
We're there to support them literally every step of the way.
You guys want more riding schools, you don't want less.
My God, that has been a complete, they've revolutionised what they're doing there.
Can you give us a rundown of the qualifications that you can actually get just to herd watching? What's that? Go on. Well, I get dressed up as a fairy most weekends, to be honest with you. I'm a kid.
Well, we had hers. That's why we agreed to do this.
Welcome to episode 17 of the Just Horse Riders podcast. This week I've got on Oonagh and Sarah from the BHS, and they take us through some of the amazing things the BHS are doing in order to help riders, instructors, riding schools, and actually how they're trying to keep the equestrian industry alive. We go into how to get approved by the BHS for your riding school, amongst many, many other things. So without further ado, here's the episode, and I hope you enjoy it.
I'm Sarah Dale, and I head up our business support department, and we are within the Approved Centre department. I've got 5 regional team members who are basically out in the field supporting BHS riding schools, livery yards, facility centres with anything and everything. So it could be we've got an issue with our local authority, and then the ops team would help us with that. It could be we don't know what to post on social media to hook some clients in. We can go and help with that.
Yeah, awesome.
That's us basically.
Yeah. So I'm Oonagh, and I'm what's called the head of operations. So a lot of my work is involving looking after a small team, and we get involved in supporting centres mainly around their licensing. Lots of them have many different questions and so how they can get through it and where help is needed. But also the main responsibility is around the Approved Centres scheme that we run. And that involves really helping work with the scheduling on a team of self-employed qualified inspectors who undertake that role for us across the country.
Yeah, this is it. And then everybody will say, oh, how do I get approved and all that sort of stuff. And they get very terrified and they meet you, they're lovely, and you're lovely. So,
we're not scary.
No, not at all, not in the slightest. I think it's like I said to you before, I was so happy when I got told that you guys wanted to come on the podcast, because again, I think it's so important that people understand what you do, how you do it, and actually that you're there to help rather than hinder or anything negative, which is great. So for anybody who doesn't know what the BHS is, what actually is it? What is their mission? Yeah.
So I'll do this in a real nutshell, off the top of my head, not reading off anything. So basically, we are a charity first and foremost. I think that's something that people forget, is that the British Horse Society is a charity. We're made up of a number of different departments, and we've got our charitable objectives, which in a nutshell are to support horses and people to thrive, provide access to safe places to ride, improve safety on the road, improve welfare through education. Our approved centres provide those safe places, and to increase participation for anybody who wants to get involved with horses. We're here for every equestrian. I think that's the key thing, isn't it, with the British Horse Society?
Which is amazing. Again, you touched on loads of different things there, but we'll start with the education. How does the BHS educate people and help equestrians move forward with their education within the equestrian industry?
Okay. Well, there's differing approaches or way it's done. A lot of it is done through the welfare department, and they try and use education through their various sort of campaigns that they run and operate, geared often towards horse owners and the sort of members of the public who maybe are interested in that. But the society runs a series of almost like recreational awards and also professional qualifications or pathways. So the idea with the recreational awards, they could be aimed at children, they could be aimed at the first-time horse owner, and it's really a bit of a guiding award system through awards such as Pony Stars, the Challenge Awards and so on, which can then also in turn lead to people maybe wanting to dip a toe into the professional pathway qualifications.
So give them a little taste of it.
Gives them a little taster. And also the lovely thing about all of the awards is they're all very different in terms of how they're delivered and also how they're assessed. and the sort of level of achievement. So many of them are set up so people can take a certain route to a certain level, and that's their comfort zone, and they'll stay there for a long, long time. But then maybe with the right coach behind them, or them riding in the right centre, they then gain a bit of confidence from that achievement, and on they progress to the next level and so on. So we really have two main areas, one being the recreational awards and the other being the more professional pathway, which would be, some people may be familiar with maybe the stages, BHS stages, leading on to various qualifications, which I could probably talk about forever. Very happy to revisit that.
Yeah, I mean, just going on the recreation, I didn't know about the I assume that's like sort of your first basics, your recreationals. Did that not have to, but was that introduced because the BHS was sort of finding that people were getting horses and actually they didn't actually quite know how to look after them? They like the idea of them, but there was no sort of course to help.
I think they really came into play as much as anything because there were an awful lot of horse owners out there who were keen to improve their knowledge. And quite often with that, if you have that sort of goal to aim for, or a certification to say, I have achieved this or I have achieved that, and some of them are individual horse owners working with their own horses with coaches that are on our accredited professional coach scheme, and some of them will be people based in riding schools. For the riding schools, we have a series of progressive riding tests, and they're great because they're so small, bite-sized learning opportunities, and it's a real little schedule of topics that's laid out. So it's really easy for the centre to deliver, and there's a big hint to the name progressive. So it gives people that sense of achievement, and helps prepare them really for the outside of the arena experience when they progress with their riding.
And I think as a BHS approved centre, if you're a BHS approved centre, we've got something for each client, haven't we? We've got challenge awards for adults, we've got pony stars for the kids, we've got so many different initiatives that they can use when they're part of the BHS.
So you've got pretty much something to fit everybody.
We hope so. But it's always fluid, it never stays still. Because obviously I think education is such a massive topic, and it's very important that with all of the qualifications, when people make the transition into what we call the sort of professional pathway or the career route, and progressing through their stages, it's really important all the way through that these stages are recognised by the industry, because many of them will lead towards opportunities for employment in the sector. So they are delivered under a slightly different system. The main thing I think that probably puts them above maybe other equestrian qualifications that might be on offer by awarding bodies is the practical skill element. So everybody gets assessed very practically on their ability around how they're handling the horses, how they're riding, whichever pathway they want to take.
I think that is amazing. But you've touched on like so many things there: the employment, the route, and and I said to you, there's so much within the BHS that you guys do, and it is amazing. Just on the training, I know from the riding school, like the different levels, like was it the I was the highest qualification you could get? Can you give us a rundown of the qualifications that you can actually get?
Okay.
Really testing you.
Like the way I've literally just gone like this. Come on, Oonagh.
Okay, so if we look at the career ones, the first one would be what we call the stage one, and so that would be an assessment where you can do either just the riding bit only, or you can do the horse care section. So there are lots of people out there who maybe want to ride to a point and maybe don't want to be assessed in their riding, but they really want to develop their skills and their knowledge around horse care and welfare. So stage one would be the first sort of starting point, as it were. And these are accessible. You don't have to wait till you're an adult to do them. And in fact, we've incorporated them now within the Changing Lives Through Horses programme. And it's just been so rewarding to see all of the participants that have come through Changing Lives and have actually progressed to that first sort of rung of the ladder. It's really, isn't it? It's really good. Really good. So you would start at your stage one. And if you achieve that, you would then progress to your stage 2.
Yeah.
And at this point, so we're now looking at the first time somebody's maybe being assessed jumping a horse.
Yeah.
And these are very often horses that they've not ridden before. They have to do them at approved centres. They can't just take them at any centre. So they would then maybe progress to the stage 2. So that's going to include them jumping a horse. They'd also include lunging as well. So they're learning in this about different methods of exercising horses. You then go on to stage 3, which also includes an element at the moment of cross-country riding. So again, it makes it very much, the qualifications almost become broader in the areas they cover, but maintaining those basic fundamentals that need to be there all the way up. So you would then do your stage 4, also known as your senior coach. So this would be your senior coach, stage 4, and also the senior manager, isn't it? I think for stage 4. The titles did change recently, so I may be a little bit out of touch on them.
All on the BHS website, though, right?
They'll all be there. And then you would then take what's known as your I, which is your instructor, also known as your stage 5, and that's the performance coach qualifications. So again, looking at stable management, riding, equitation, flat work, jumping, and also the good old coaching.
You mentioned about the accredited schools. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people on there that are saying, well, what is a BHS accredited approved school? And how on earth do you get approved by the BHS?
Gosh, okay. So we call it like the approved centre scheme, because we have more than riding schools. We'll have trekking centres, we'll have livery yards, we'll have facility centres on it. So we have different sort of categories of centre might want to join the scheme. So it differentiates slightly a little bit around each of those types of businesses as what we'd like to maybe see in the business. But if we're looking particularly at the riding school sector, firstly, they need to have a riding school licence.
And where do they get that from?
So to get that, they would need to apply, first of all, to their local authority. The local authority in each area are the ones who deal with any kind of licensing applications. And back in 2018, there was an update to the Animal Welfare Act. So all licensing was reviewed, from kennels and catteries, boarding of dogs, everything. And the equine provision also came under that review as well. So all local authorities will issue the licence, but the first point is to contact them. They should then also be able to tell you what the fees are that are involved. And they would request also submission of lots of documentation that is evidencing exactly. And this is where people stumble a little bit.
Yeah, it can be very, very confusing.
So that evidence is their planning, their proactive planning around the healthcare of all of the horses in their care. So they would also need to have business insurance and obviously planning for business to be able to operate from the property they're on.
So is that, I know I'm sorry to interrupt you with it, is that something that, so if they were going to go to their planners first and they were like, well, I don't know where to start, is that something they could come to the BHS with to help, like with any help with the documentation?
We get quite a lot of inquiries about people who are thinking of starting a riding school. Even if it's a small one, maybe like only 4 or 5 ponies or whatever, they've got ponies, they want to utilise them, they want to do it legally. It is illegal to operate a riding school without a licence.
Which a lot of people, I think, don't know about.
That's right. And so people can contact us, and then at that stage, if they sort of have an expression of interest, then we will tell them the very basics, and we signpost them to Sarah and her team. Who their business managers then pick up the phone and talk them through the process.
Yeah, so we're there to support them literally every step of the way. Whether it's they've just started up their riding school, we can help them. We've got templates for, you name it, we've got a template for it to help with the documentation, because it's really overwhelming. And I think a key takeaway as well is that if you're somebody, watching or listening to this podcast that's thinking about taking horse riding lessons, taking your child horse riding, check its licence. There are so many people operating without a licence, which is of detriment to the fully licensed and insured centres.
Why should they check?
If they're not licensed, they're not insured.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't. Horses have to be licensed to take money for somebody riding a horse that you own, whether you're a business or a private owner. That horse needs to be licensed. You have got to have a license.
So the licensing, how it works. Sorry, just to add to what Sarah was saying. We did write a licensing survival guide, and so if a centre is wanting to become approved and in that early stages of setting up their riding school, we can actually send them that document with all the various templates to help. It really is a bit of a guide to, this is what this means, this is what you need to produce, and so on and so forth.
And I think it's the inspection side of it, I think, is the bit that people sort of shy away from. They think, oh, I can manage it, I'll do it on my own. But actually, we're here to help. We're here to help. And the inspection offers protection. Yeah. That extra layer of another body has come in and double checked paperwork, welfare, standards of teaching.
Totally. And if it, even though it probably seems quite daunting, even with the council application and then the BHS approval steps that we'll go through as well, you guys want more riding schools, you don't want less.
That's right.
You know, because if there's if it's on the decline, then we're all in trouble. Yeah, we're all in trouble, and we want to make sure, I suppose, that the core of it is to make sure that the horses are obviously looked after, but riding stays prominent in the UK.
I mean, going back to the licensing, what would then happen if somebody sent all their information to the local authority? They would then organise an inspection. This is the local authority inspection, and with that, there would be our CVS. That's the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons, have a list of vets who are equestrian specialists, and they will come out and they will do the assessment of the horses around horse health, their suitability, to make sure that they are suitable in terms of their temperament, their soundness, and so on, so that they are fit for use for working in a riding school. And with that, they also check their age, and there's a long list of things that they go through. And the council will come in either at the same time as the vet or on a separate date to then cover what I call the council issues, which would be around looking a little bit deeper at the paperwork. So the vet is considered to be the equestrian expert at any of the local authority licensing visits. And so then, depending on if it's a new business, the local authorities have what's called a risk-rated system. So they will apply risk to a business, and that will determine what star, as in the duration of that license longevity.
Oh, right. So there's different lengths of... I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like a 5-star license being awarded by a local authority should mean that establishment gets that license for 3 years. And there would be some interim visits to check on the horse health every year from the listed vets still. And so that's one of the real things about the licensing for riding, is it does make sure that those horses are getting that independent veterinary check to say that, yes, they are suitable for use. And the vets are sensible. They recognise that for an older horse who's really well educated, who is very safe, they'll check the work hours that the horse has to make sure that is he on a suitable workload for an elderly horse. And likewise, they won't let anyone on that's too young. As well.
That you just mentioned then about the work hours. I remember when I was the gopher at the riding school, you know, the lackey. I had to write these down, but like something like that. Not that we overwork the horses, but something like that. Just that system didn't even occur. No. It's like, but when you go around to these sort of centres that are going through that process, you'll probably explain to more or give them ideas of things that they didn't even, because that'll also reduce the amount of time that the horse is going to be lame or injured. You know, it's a really, really great.
And we find that, you know, many of the centres are very switched on, aren't they? And they're very astute to making sure that the horses have got the right workload for that horse, for its status, its age, its height, its size, its fitness, and so on. Because it's in their interest to look after their horses. You know, they've got to be happy horses working in the riding school. So so that's the council inspection, and then ours. Then for ours, we focus on very similar areas for the riding school licensing, but what we also tend to look at are the coaching standards. Those don't get looked at in a riding school license inspection with the local authority. So we look at the quality of the coaching, making sure that the horses and riders are compatible, that they're well matched, that the person who's delivering the session has got the right skills to be delivering that session. They're not maybe out of their depth or something. So we're really looking at I use the word sort of client experience. Are they getting good value going to that riding school? Are they happy? And importantly, that the horses are happy and the right horse doing the job. Amazing. So and another area we differ would be around safeguarding, wouldn't it? Yeah. So because safeguarding doesn't sit within the Animal Welfare Act, it isn't asked for by local authorities in their licensing. And the society really is sort of pushing quite strong for safeguarding to be recognised in all equine areas.
As it should be. I mean, it completely should be, because it's, if you're sending your child to a riding school to learn to ride, it's, how important is it that safeguarding DBS checks are in place? So that is something that if you choose a BHS approved centre to ride at, you can be guaranteed that those centres have got safeguarding in place, which is just, crazy.
Especially, that's where it mainly starts. I mean, my kids, I'm sure loads and loads of children, they all start riding schools. You've got to test it and see if you like it before you get your own horse. Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of adults that go, but I assume the percentage of riders at riding school are children. So obviously, really, really important there.
And there are. I mean, we have some riding schools, don't we, that they will only teach adults. Yeah. But again, you are looking at that whole topic of safeguarding is also about vulnerable adults as well. Yeah. So we try and make sure that if the centres have all of the provisions in place, so for example, we expect a centre to have a safeguarding policy. We're realistic. A lot of centres won't have one because they've never had to write one before. No. So we don't expect them to write their own. Yeah. We have that policy that they can adapt. Yeah. But it's important that they have it if they're on our scheme, because that means that we can then work with them and support them. Yeah. If they need to report a concern, where do they go? How do they take this forwards? And manage that to support their staff, really importantly, to support and inform their staff, and also to be supporting the welfare of their clients whilst they're on their site.
And that's a really good point, is that's another element of BHS approval is you, by being part of the scheme, you've got us there to help fight your corner. Yeah. If you've got a problem, if there's been, we've helped centres pull paperwork together for claims, haven't we? For insurance claims. There's an issue, we're here to help and we're here to support. You get your business support manager, who's the dedicated manager in your region, and they have roughly 150 to 200 centres to look after each. So it means you've got somebody who's based within your area who can really, really help you and support you with all of that. The stuff that feels really overwhelming.
Yeah, there you go. So if you need any help with it, they're all here, and I'm sure we've only touched the tip of the iceberg with this as well. So we talked about, is there any more sort of points that you look at when going through the approval process as well? Are we still? Yeah, no, brilliant. Bring it on. No, bring it on. We need to know.
People will all be turning off now.
No, it's important. It's important. People need to know. They'll watch it and then they'll understand what actually rigorous processes you go through.
So if we look, if it was a riding school, we'd obviously expect they do need to have that license to operate first. And I don't know, but it'd rather confuse things. Would it confuse to mention about the other licensing we look at?
I mean, yeah, go for it. I'm going to sit here quietly.
Okay. Well, so for example, there's a lot of equine activity starting around the use of the horse for non-ridden activities.
Such as?
So this would be, for example, pony parties.
Oh, right.
So where ponies aren't ridden, and it's probably worth everybody knowing, if they go to a pony party, then that pony party provider, if the ponies are being ridden, as in a child even being sat upon a pony, then that business needs to run under the same licence a riding school does.
Really?
So, and that's probably worth actually mentioning, because there's probably quite a lot of those that are operating a little bit
And is that due for the insurance side of it, or is that for other aspects of it?
It's again for the insurance. They need to have insurance to do this.
Yeah.
And also it's around the welfare of the horses and ponies.
Yeah.
And it applies to donkeys as well.
Yeah.
So it covers everybody.
Yeah.
So if you were going to be doing non-ridden provision, so this could be people that are looking at using the horse for therapy-based treatments, for, I shouldn't say treatment, but, for therapy care type sessions, then again, those horses should be licensed, but under a license that it's known as the keeping animals for training or exhibition license.
Wow.
So, and this is because they're used for handling and education and training technically. So
it could be like we've got centres that do stuff like come and have tea with a pony.
Oh, that's nice.
So like they'll bring elderly people from a care home to come and have tea with pony.
Oh, wow.
And they're not getting on them; they're just patting them. Those horses need to be licensed under the equine activity.
Yeah.
It's really important and it's if you're booking a pony party for your child's birthday, how many parents know all of this? That if this provider does not have a license, there's no insurance. What if something goes?
It's the what if, isn't it? It might be 1 in a million or 1 in 1,000, whatever it is. But if it happens, you're in a lot of trouble.
So if somebody does come across that question and they maybe Google pony parties, for example, then certainly, if somebody is licensed, it's a requirement that they have a website. It's a requirement that they display their license number on their website.
So it should be there in plain sight.
And if they've got any question, then they should contact their local authority. Yeah. The local authorities, some of them are great and will have a public register up on their website. You might have to dig around to find it a bit, but if you can't, then contact the licensing department and they should be able to say if it's licensed.
What do you say to those people or those parents that go, it'll be all right?
I think there's a large element of naivety, to be quite brutal. And I think also, if a pony is used in that sort of activity, it's got to be the right pony. Yeah. It shouldn't be used for pony parties because it is naughty when you do anything else with it. Yeah. It can't be a pony that's sort of going to bite or kick, or it needs to be a pony that's well mannered and also has the right temperament as well, that it's actually happy for that sort of pony party experience.
I think it would be a case of, like you said, the parents need to think of the what if. God forbid, but what if? Yeah. If everything's in place, the pony's been assessed accordingly by local authority, then you're in a better starting position. If you go to somebody who is operating without the licensing, the insurance, what if? What if your child is bitten by the pony, stood on, falls off, etc. Yeah,
at least you're covered then.
Yeah.
And I would say actually, if you've got a local riding school, that's the best place to start with your pony parties, because many of them do it and they're licensed. They're doing it that's their
it's the bread and butter.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely.
Yeah. And the ponies that they're using, and some insurers for pony parties will only offer insurance if the pony has been in the ownership of that person for a minimum of 12 months.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So you can assess the temperament sufficiently.
Yeah, but
it's a big ask, isn't it, to a pony to stand and be, dress up as a fairy.
I know. Well, I get dressed up as a fairy most weekends, to be honest with you, by my kids.
Yeah, that's why we agreed to do this.
I had to get changed very quickly. I'd take my wings off.
Yeah. No, keep them on.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm sure there's a hell of a lot more that we.
Yeah, I sidetracked, didn't I? So with our inspections, the areas that they look at. So basically, an application would come in, straight away support from the business support team, and we do ask for submission of documents, but as Sarah mentioned, all the templates are there to help and so on. And that's really to give us an assurance of the currency of information. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if a riding school had its licence and it was for 3 years, that's fine, but we all know insurance renews on a yearly agreement.
And goes up.
Absolutely, it does. So we do ask for current documents to come in. And then what would happen is they would then be allocated an inspector. The inspectors are friendly. Mm-hmm. The idea is that the inspector has knowledge of that local area, because they're looking at the centre based on what is the catchment area because really that's going to determine the business model and how it evolved. And the areas that the inspector will be looking at is primarily the horse care and welfare. So understanding how that centre operates, how they manage the horse workload hours, the proactiveness around all of the preventative healthcare side of things. We also look at the client experience. So this relates to then the coaching standards. If it's trekking, what are the levels of supervision? How big are the rides? What's the expertise around those people taking out the rides to keep everything safe, and the risk assessments that you'd need? For example, if there's an incident and you're sort of half a mile up a mountain, how are you going to manage that? It's those sort of things that don't get looked at in the same depth maybe when they have the local authority inspection. We also look at areas such as the grassland, the qualifications of the staff, recognising that there are many centres out there that have very experienced staff as well. So we do look at that fine balance between the experience and also the qualifications of the staff that are really taking responsibility for the welfare of the horses and ponies in their care.
Just on that and the experience and that sort of thing, is there any sort of like grandfather rights when it comes down to the qualifications? So like if you get someone who's been in the industry and for, I don't know, 50 odd years, yes, would you then sort of award them a certain qualification?
Yeah. So how it works is we can't award a qualification, a BHS qualification, based on somebody's experience. But the education team have, this is going to get super complicated, so I'll try and keep it simple. So basically, they have a system called REPL, which is the recognition of experiential and prior learning. Wow. So they will be looking at the profile of somebody, their experience, their CV, etc. And they can utilise that to allow people to have what's called direct entry into a qualification. So if you have been working in the industry for many years, if you can evidence that you've ridden horses at this level, you've had this responsibility running a yard or whatever, then that's all considered in giving you direct entry at an appropriate level from 1 through to, well, no, you don't need it at 1, but from sort of stage 2 through to stage 5, or the performance coach qualification. Wow. So that, and I think that's a really good thing to do. Definitely, because 100%. For a start, a lot of people will often sort of start working in the industry and they're doing it because they love the horses. And actually, maybe at that time, they're not in a position to have training as well. Some might be lucky enough to have good training within their job package, their employment package. They might do an apprenticeship, for example, but other people maybe don't have that sort of opportunity. So that can help people get in onto the correct level that's appropriate for them, to then enable them to take the qualifications. When it comes to looking at approved centres, first of all, for the riding school sector, when they have their licence given to them by the local authority, the local authorities are looking for either a minimum level 3 qualification. Right, okay. So that would be, think, equivalent to what people might be familiar with as the AI, or it's nowadays called stage 3 complete coach. Yeah. Okay. Okay. They look at, that be a level 3, and that's what we call a regulated qualification. So that means that there is quite a rigorous quality assurance behind that qualification. So they'll also accept level 3 college-based diplomas as well. Right. Or they will, and also work-based diploma, old language NVQ. So level 3 qualification is recognised for the licence holder. Wow. But they will also recognise experience. So if you've been running a riding school all of your life and you've never taken a qualification, and you've been given a licence by a local authority all of your life, then why would they revoke that? Because your performance has proven that you're meeting the standards of the local authority. Yeah. Does that sort of make sense? Yeah, no, definitely makes sense. But I think a lot of people won't realise that that's the case, and it's so hard to sort of get that across. But those qualifications that the local authorities look for, if there isn't clear evidence, if it's a new business, it can be very difficult to say, well, I've been running this riding school forever. Yeah. So in that situation, a local authority would say, well, okay, you might have brilliant facilities, your horses look well, everybody's happy with what they've seen, but you are to us high risk because your business has not yet been operational. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it could be really good and it could be super, super people there, but if they haven't got that proven experience and relationship with their local authority of trust, of compliance, then they will put a higher risk to them. Yeah. So they might end up with a 1-star license, which means they're going to be fully inspected the next year.
Oh, is it a 1-star's one year?
Yeah, 1 year. Well, 1-star or 2-star. It'll. There's many variables.
Nobody really knows. No. Like nobody knows the algorithm.
Yeah. With the approved centre scheme, we do look at people's experience as well as the combination of qualifications. You could have a very experienced proprietor who maybe doesn't have a single qualification, but actually what they've got behind them or with them is a really, they've got all that experience, but they've also maybe employ a really young team that actually are so keen to progress. Yeah. And that's when we really work with the centres. And of course, we want these centres to join us so we can support the education of their staff, which in turn we hope will help with retention, which is one of the biggest challenges, I think, isn't it, for many of the centres now?
Well, you've just gone on to, I think, my next point is the staff is the education-wise, because a lot, we've had it at our riding school where the kids come to ride and then they come as helpers on the yard and then they want to go and teach and then they make that sort of progression. Like, what support is there from the BHS to for that little girl or boy who's come from lessons and now wants to be in it at that riding school? How where does the BHS step in there and guide them through that?
So, well, I mean, do button in, tell me to have a rest if you want, Sarah. But so obviously, as a young rider, the clearest sort of thing for them to initially follow would be that recreational pathway. And then I think it's at the age of 14 now you can do stage 1? Yeah. I believe it is. At the age of 14, they could then utilise the stage 1.
Oh, that young? Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, 14 years old. Wow.
So, but amongst that, you've got your challenge awards, you've explored. So there's all the other awards that could be there. Right. So a riding school can help deliver, the riding school could deliver those within their centre. Yeah. But then once people have achieved their stage 1, then currently we have an initiative called the Career Transition Fund. And this is basically aimed at people that are looking to work in the industry and aimed at people who are wanting to dip their toe a little bit further into that career pathway to stage 2 and to stage 3. So they're able to apply, and this is if they're working at a centre at this stage.
Yeah, it's a minimum hour.
Yeah. So is that was going to be my next question? Like, what is the cost of doing all these sort of stages?
It's all on the website. I can't remember that.
No,
it varies at each level as well.
Yeah, it does.
But the Career Transition Fund, they can apply if they're a member of staff in a BHS approved centre. They can apply for the Career Transition Fund, and it gives them money to help cover those costs.
Yeah. Is there any?
Oh, and they get a discount. Approved centre staff get a 10% discount off their BHS assessment. Yeah, so there's lots of
And something that we introduced recently was a scheme, and this is free for the centre staff to join, which recognises them as approved centre coaches or approved centre grooms. Because I think it's very important when we look at the industry and the staffing of the industry and keeping it sustainable and attractive is to the recognition that is also given to the grooms. So the people that don't maybe want to go and stand there and teach and coach and instruct, whatever term we apply to it, but those that are really looking after the care of the horses, that the grooms can also access this. And it's good because they get 25% off, I think.
Yeah, and they can go, you can, if you want to stick to the groom side, you can go fully up the groom pathway. You don't have to do the coaching and the riding elements.
Like I said, it's amazing how much the BHS can help riding schools get on their feet and go through that process as well. But one of the things that my mum, Sharon, when she was on the podcast, she discussed about the Changing Lives programme. Tell us more about that.
So Changing Lives is a programme for young people from 5 to 25. It's obviously only run in BHS approved centres, and it's for people with special educational needs, not in educational training. They might just not fit into a traditional school environment, and horses can offer that educational place for them to come and learn. They learn life skills throughout the course. Oonagh touched on earlier that we've had several candidates go through their stage 1, which is just absolutely amazing. It started in 2016, and I can't think of the numbers off the top of my head as to how many people have passed through it, but the rate of getting those participants back into educational training is really high. It's a really successful project.
I think 3,000 have gone through the programme.
Right, yeah.
3,000 have gone through the programme.
And the rate of those going back into educational training is really, really high. So yeah, it just takes those young people who, for whatever reason, might not be thriving in a traditional environment, into these centres like Carrington, to learn these skills. And they get their maths.
Yes, so basically, when Changing Lives Through Horses first started, the real focus, it was very much a roll-on type provision. So anyone who's familiar with education would sort of basically start when it's suitable for them to start, finish when it's suitable for them to finish, sort of provision. And it originally focused on the sort of 6 areas of development, things like confidence, working with others, self-esteem, looking at building a lot of those skills that were lacking often in a lot of the participants. So the idea was that this would help them learn what's known as transferable skills. They could then relate into their own life and their own environment, and just help have them also at the same time have that safe space to learn, to develop and to grow.
And it's worth adding in there, isn't it, that not every centre can be a Changing Lives Through Horses. It's got to be a particular type of environment.
So even if you're approved, you won't necessarily. It's not a guarantee. There's another process that you need to go through in order to.
The main thing with the Changing Lives programme is that it's got to be a centre that has absolutely the right ethos, and they have to have the time and be prepared to find the time and the resources and the right staff who have a genuine interest in delivering the programme, because a lot of it is pastoral care around these participants. There is a reason why they're not fitting into mainstream. There's a reason why they're not comfy for it. And the centres have to have that understanding. So the programme did develop more a few years ago, where we took a good look at the programme and thought, well, this is great, but to help centres and to help the sustainability of the programme, we need to make sure that it's also meeting what a lot of the local authority requirements were requiring around the educational aspect. So the programme, we did a lot of investment in the programme, and this then meant that the content of it was reviewed a lot. So there's still focus on those main 6 areas for development, but it also maps to the national curriculum across the nations for England, Scotland, Ireland and Wales, to key stages. So if you're an approved centre and you want to engage with your local school and to be able to offer an educational programme that they can justify, has content that is relevant to the curriculum, and it's more than just a pony being patted by a child, there is an educational benefit behind it. So it's a really good programme, isn't it?
And if you've got a young person who isn't in educational training, but you think they've got a keen interest in horses, get in touch with your local BHS approved centre and get them involved in the programme, because it has been revolutionary in so many ways. And then the other lovely thing about Changing Lives that started in 2018 was the Second Chance programme. So this is basically, we work with the RSPCA, and initially it was to put rescue ponies into Changing Lives centres. So ponies that were ended up in RSPCA care for whatever reason, we would match them with a Changing Lives centre, and that pony would then start its education. We've since opened it out to all BHS approved riding schools, with the reason being these centres have got suitably trained, experienced professionals there who can start these ponies' education in the best way. Some of these horses have come from horrendous backgrounds of, neglect. So some of them are terrified, and the centres, we've rehomed 99 horses and ponies. Wow. Bearing in mind we had COVID where we weren't doing anything. So 99 horses and ponies, and There's so many of them thriving in the Changing Lives Through Horses project, in the riding school in general. It's an absolutely fantastic program. So that's another great thing that our approved centres are doing, is rehoming these ponies and really working with them. And there's ones that I was there when they were being the centres were coming to collect them. They were terrified, and then within 6 months we were having videos of them working in the school.
Really?
Just incredible turnarounds. So the centres they've done phenomenal work with them.
That's amazing. So you're sending these ponies to essentially get a second chance, and they're absolutely loving it, and it's clearly working.
They have a future, and they're well cared for.
And they are literally, we've had Shetlands, we've had little, yearlings right up to older cobs. The centres are taking them on and really working hard to get them going. And then they're then contributing back to the industry, these horses are, because they're teaching people to ride and increasing participation, educating people on how to look after horses. So it's brilliant.
That's amazing. Well, there's so many programs that you're doing, and just on like participation and riding schools. Like, where are we with that? Like, are we seeing a steadiness? Are we seeing a decline? Are we seeing an increase? What are riding schools coming to? Well, you mentioned COVID before, and my mum Sharon, she said that you guys were amazing during COVID. The amount of support that you offered, and you were just fantastic. No, well, it is, but like everyday riding schools, with the costs going through the roof, cost of living, all that sort of stuff. Like, what are you hearing? What's happening?
So there has been a significant decline in the number of riding schools, and we knew that from a piece of work that we did with looking at the local authority numbers around licensed premises. So there has been a significant drop in the number of centres. If we look at our reasons as to why centres have left the BHS scheme, the number one reason is closure. That the riding schools are closing down, and it is because it's become a really hard business to make viable in the current day and age. Insurance premiums are through the roof. Yeah. Think about my electricity bill's gone up. How much the riding schools are seeing the same. Sourcing good horses for a sensible price is just, the horses are really expensive again. I don't think capacity is an issue, because actually what we hear a lot from the centres is they're busy with waiting lists, but then finding the right kind of horse with the right staff to get those people on horses in the school seems to be quite a big issue. So yeah, there's a lot of sort of the cost side of things of running the business, but there's definitely no decrease in public, interest in riding. So our job now as the BHS and the Approved Centre Department is to be as supportive as possible to help these riding schools thrive, and the livery yards as well, because livery it's a hard business to be in, definitely. Is there any
examples that you have where a riding school who was struggling has then taken a different route, or added something onto their business, which then has gone, oh wow, this has massively helped us here, and we're able to still offer lessons, but we're able to still operate as a riding school?
There's been a lot around downsizing, hasn't there, or increasing. So it's looking at, right, if you think about it, a centre will say, right, I want to upscale this business. Okay, but that could have an impact on business rates. And will we get enough revenue in to cover the cost of the increase in business rates, the increase of staff, the increase of horses? Some of them have downsized, but equally a lot of centres have looked to more things like the Changing Lives Through Horses project. They can run those during daytime hours, so evenings and weekends are your bread and butter, aren't you, where you're getting all your general public riders in. During the day can be a bit quieter, so changing the business model towards their Changing Live provision. And I mean, Carrington is a great one to look at, isn't it? I mean, my God, that has been a complete, they've revolutionised what they're doing there. Your mum's completely changed the business structure. So yeah, it's centres looking more at that educational provision, and tweaking things like that. But I mean, a lot of the centres I mentioned earlier, the tea with the pony, these kind of things. So that horse isn't working in school, but they're still earning an income, and these people are having the benefits of just being around horses. So there's lots of different little streams of diversification that we're seeing. Herd watching.
What's that? Go on. Is that literally what it says in the title, watching? Really?
So interesting. And then some of the centres are also doing things like working with businesses to look at team dynamics.
Corporate
days to come out and look at the horses in a herd, who's in charge, what's going on here. And a lot of the centres are doing that kind of thing. So they're thinking outside the box, and it's working really well for a lot of them.
That's amazing. I didn't know about that herd watching. That's actually a really, really good idea.
You think for a team building day, if you're sat in an office all day, it's a great team building day. I mean, I think it is.
I don't disagree with you. I'd love to get a lot of the guys here who work on the horse, but most of them are terrified, so I don't push it too much. That educational journey, where does that start? Does that start with contacting you guys, and then they're gonna, you're gonna show them the route how to get down that to get some of the changing lives in?
On top of it, so we've got Oonagh and the inspectors. We've got my team, business support, to help get centres where they need to be with inspections, whether that's our inspection, local authority, or whether, like I said, pick an area of support and we'll try and help. Equally, you've got the Changing Lives Through Horses team. So we've actually got a dedicated team. Yeah. We've got Philippa in the north, and we've got Emma in the south, and then Alison, who's the head of the department, and that's what they do. So if a centre has become approved, then says to one of my team, one of my business support managers, "Oh, we really like Changing Lives," my team will go, "Brilliant, give you all the information. I'll pass you on to your Changing Lives manager," and then they pick it up, and they're the experts in really taking them through the process.
Yeah. There's quite, they do have training and support, so it isn't just all sort of fill in an application form, you can do Changing Lives. So basically the centre has to be able to nominate who would be the lead coach for the centre, and that's where we do look at the qualifications, and also really around the experience of the people at the centre. And many of them do have lots of experience, whether they've worked previously in social services or they're used to dealing with the sort of participants that are going to be attending the programme.
And a lot of them were actually almost doing it already, but without the resources, and also because of the framework and the structure, they can attract funding from schools, local authorities, etc. So we just give them that.
That's it. I mean, you're absolutely right. It isn't, in a way, it isn't something new. Lots of riding schools have been doing this, but they haven't had that structure. And I think basically having that structure there does offer them protection as somebody who is entering into an agreement. So, for example, if you're going to enter an agreement with a school, then you really do need to make sure you've got a very clear service level agreement with the school, so that everybody's managing expectations very clearly around it. And I should have mentioned earlier, one of the recent developments within the Changing Lives Through Horses, because this programme is about helping that young person through that stage of their life and to develop their skills, not just from an equine perspective. So they've also started taking what's known as a personal development qualification alongside this. Okay. So this is a standalone qualification, and we help the centres in how it is delivered, and then we follow up with all the quality assurance around that. So effectively, these participants come away with their attendance at the Changing Lives to whichever level is suitable for them. And they also have it's known as a PDQ, level 1, level 2, and they get to achieve those if it's appropriate for them to take it, and for not all of them. So it's not compulsory that they have to, but the option is there for them.
And what would that help with? What would that qualification help with it?
Mainly around their personal development. So going back to those areas of transferable skills, confidence development, time management, and they basically I'll call it a friendly portfolio that they put together, because a lot of people do not like writing loads and loads, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be about being able to write loads. It should be about the quality of what they've been able to produce gets measured, not the quantity, if that makes sense. And that's often the real stumbling block for people in achieving, isn't it? Yeah. If you've got to achieve something that's massively long or hard, you won't. But if you can be helped and tutored and supported, it's that saying, isn't it? It's more difficult to write a short letter than a long letter.
No, it is. It's such an amazing. I mean, when I was at school, I wish there was these sort of options to, like, there was nothing like if you weren't any good at school, you were put in the dunce class, in the corner.
But it is literally doing what it says. It's changing the lives of these young people completely. Like some of these people would have had there would have been nothing for them, and
Do you have any stories? Because like you said, it's been running to 2018. Do you know any stories from the changing lives from individual children or whoever that you know of that it's helped so significantly?
I know that we had, I can't think of the detail. Oh, this is me all over, but I can't think of the detail off the top of my head. But I just remember there was one. It was a little boy at our riding school, because we do a riding school championships every year. The people who don't have the chance to compete their own horses, all the riding schools hold qualifiers, and they come to a venue, and we hold a big, real championship show. Like, everything's really, it's big, isn't it? It's great. Yeah. And one of the young lads who competed there, I can't remember the detail on it, but he was mute, and being around the horses is what has made him open up and talk. Wow. And I remember them as he came down the centre line for his dressage, his mum was in tears, and I was like, oh. Yeah. And he was on a second chance? He was on a pony that was from not a second chance, but it was a pony that had come from a rescue centre. So it was almost like these two souls that would, had come together and had really, made a change in each other's lives, which is amazing.
I love stories like that. I love stories like that. But you hear so many about those sort of stories, especially with horses, and there is something magical about them. There is definitely something.
One of the things that was quite interesting was during that awful time of COVID, some local authorities were actually asking the riding schools to continue to operate the Changing Lives programme, despite them having to be closed, because this was the safe place for their participants.
Because the negative impact on them not participating would have been greater than.
Yeah. So that really shows the worth it had for the local authorities to really say, no, we need you to stay open. Please, can you continue to operate with adaptations, of course, and everything in place. So. Yeah.
No, they are, and I say it all the time. I really do think that we're so lucky to be in the equestrian industry, and you guys are obviously keeping it alive.
If I could show 7-year-old Sarah that this is going to be the job you're going to do when you're older, I don't think I would have believed it. 7-year-old Sarah would have been like.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Why horses? What got you into horses? Why are you here with them?
So I started riding when I was 7, and it was. My mum had always loved horses, but never really gotten into it. And my auntie was actually a riding instructor. So I started, and I can remember I was at a riding school that didn't operate much in the winter because they didn't have floodlights. Yeah. So we did stable management all winter, which I loved. And that was it. And I didn't get my own horse until I was... Do you know what? The first horse I actually bought that was mine was I had a Blue Cross rescue pony first. And then the horse I've got now, who is 20, I've had him for 18 years. He was my first horse. And I've worked in riding schools, livery yards, you name a type of equestrian business, I've probably worked in it. And then I worked in the feed industry for 5 years, and then came to the BHS 5 years ago, and it's almost been like a dream come true, or a dream job.
But this is it. Can you? Nobody seems to be able to answer. But why would you want to? Because this is how people say that aren't in the equestrian industry. Why would you want to go in the freezing cold, in the rain, and muck out a pony, stand in an arena, teach clients, and all this? Why? What is it?
I tell you what, I've only figured this out since having kids. So when I was sleep deprived, I had 2 under 2, and I was exhausted. I was so tired for that first 3 minutes. When they were in bed and I'd leave the baby monitors with my husband, I'd go, I'm going to go to the yard. Getting on that horse, schooling or hacking, doesn't matter what I was doing, I was like, this is the best therapy in the world. Yeah. And I think the horses give me my headspace, and if they're a real grounding, for me, it's a grounding and calming, and just, you know what, a constant. No matter what's happened in my life, horses have always been there. That's the one thing I've never come away from.
I think they're non-judgmental. They're non-judgmental. They're very sensitive. They suss out the character as soon as the character is near them. Mm-hmm. I think that's it, really, isn't it? They're non-judgmental, really.
Yeah. Go on, I want to know. What is the reason? What is the reason why What happened? Where did it start from? Where did the love start?
It started, now this is bizarre, so where I lived as a child and 4 elder brothers, and there was a riding school down the road, and gosh, it sounds really bad, but the riding school used to graze the horses just on open common land, and along with the goats, it was quite a funny little riding school, and these horses used to come onto the development, onto the estate where we all lived. And of course, we were very good, and we always did as our mother said. And she said, "Oh, you need to take those horses back." And these horses were literally just turned out, so we'd just sort of grab a mane and we'd take them back. And this dear lady, who was quite eccentric, she sort of said, "Oh, right, yes, thank you. They're always doing that." And so we built up a friendship with her. And a lot of people would complain about the mess the horses made, but we were these very simple children who would just take them back each time. So she started giving us riding lessons without my mother knowing. And this will explain. Yeah. So this will explain a lot. So one day, and this will explain why I'm like I am to work with Sarah, but I got legged up at about the age of 5 onto some horse on the road and straight over the other side, and I landed on my head.
Oh, helmet.
At which point, no, this was in the days of you didn't have riding hats or anything.
Oh.
I am older. I am older than I look, I'd like to say. But anyway, cut a long story short, obviously at that point, my parents found out that we'd all been going for riding lessons. So, of course, we were keen to take the ponies back. And we then went to a proper licensed riding school. And that was where it started.
Was it a BHS approved riding school?
Not the one I fell off at. No. I don't even know if it had I wouldn't even like to say if it had a license or not in those days. But yeah, the one I went to was.
Yeah, no. With this, I mean, it is all. I love obviously the work the BHS does, but I always like to find out about the horses and really. With my kids, and I'm sure with your children as well, and whoever else, all the young kids in the whole industry, is like. It teaches them, in my opinion, quite a lot of responsibility.
I think it also teaches resilience.
Resilience, definitely. If you fall off that horse, you are getting back on. You've got to get back on that horse.
But it does. For me, the biggest benefit horse riding can have for children is it does teach them resilience. It teaches them responsibility, and it teaches problem solving. Because if they're in that group lesson and they want to be able to achieve canter. And maybe they're a little bit nervous, but they've seen their friends have all done it. It's that confidence boost for them to be able to achieve it amongst their peer group. Definitely. So, yeah.
And I do wonder what I would have done if I hadn't found horses. I have no idea what I've never done anything other than every job I've done has always been linked.
Same.
Yeah. Is there any, again, I'm just going off this because of what we talked about when me included, when I wasn't as young as that, but even when I was 18, I loved being around them, and my kids loved being around them. You guys loved them being around them when they were kids. Is there any, I know you do the awards and that, but is there any initiatives to get people who haven't even sat or even thought about being on a horse bring them in? Like what are the BHS doing to go, do you fancy horse riding? Do you fancy doing it? Like, come and have a look. And then once you've got them in, then we've got them.
So we've got big sandwich boards, and we basically.
I was like, really?
So I can see that happening now. You've said that.
That's not an idea that I was mentioned. No, we so basically, yes, that is something we absolutely are doing. So we've got centres that run. Have you heard of the HAF project?
I haven't. No, please explain. Yeah,
it's basically it's a government-run project where children from sort of lower socioeconomic backgrounds can attend an activity, and the activity will provide that child with the activity and a hot meal. And a lot of our centres have signed up and done that, so the children will get to come spend time with horses and have a good lunch. And it means that when their parents might be having to go to work through the summer holidays, childcare, it's really difficult. These projects are providing really good places for children to go for the day and have some food. We've also got centres who are alongside us and alongside other governing bodies. We are running different initiatives around different faith groups. Yeah. So we've done one in the West Midlands, one in London recently. There's another one that was happening in the Northwest. Different faith groups coming along to big open days. The one we had down in London had hundreds of people attending it. Getting people who'd never been near a horse on a horse.
I think it was over 300.
Yeah. Sit on a horse, just a quick taste to sit on a horse, have a look around the centre, and then we were doing, there would be partially funded sessions for them to continue.
Amazing.
So we've got, it's a big sort of project coming up within the BHS, is more around inclusivity, participation, getting more people who would never think to be, to go horse.
Try it. But is that available yet, or is it available yet?
So there's centres are doing things off their own back all the time, and the BHS, Pony Club, RDA, etc., are always running different kinds of initiative. BD are running one at the moment. So yeah, it's worth, if you've not. I would say if you've never sat on a horse, you don't know where to start, just get in touch with your local riding school and just see what you can do and see where you can start.
Wow. So, I mean, I'm going down a rabbit hole here. I know I am. I'm going into different things, and just you guys can tell me to shut up when you've had enough as well, by the way. What do you say? I mean, I wasn't horsey from day one. I got into the horse world when I was about 18. But previous to that, I always saw horse riding as a bit of an elitist sort of posh, area which people like me was not allowed to go to. But what I mean is what do you say to people who see it as they're going to be a bit off with me because I'm not from the same community? Or
goes back to what Ian just said, horses are non-judgmental. They don't care where you're from, what's happened, as long as you're nice to them. They don't care. And the same goes for centres. They are there for everyone. And the BHS, that's our whole thing, is we are here to support and encourage people from all walks of life to get involved in horses, because there's benefits to everybody. Whether you want to go and compete at top level, whether you just want to go and pat a pony in a field, we can help.
And I think, there are centres, there are inner city centres. And if they weren't there, then those people wouldn't get access to horses. So, just as there are rural ones, there are some, not in every city. But,
a lot of them, though. We've got one, practically in the heart of Birmingham. We've got, we've got several in London. We've got one up in Newcastle. There's centres all over the place that you would never think there's going to be a riding school there.
Really? Yeah. What what with the land and everything, or how do they work with that?
A lot of them will have additional land a couple of miles out.
So they transport them?
We'll literally transport them in.
Oh,
yeah. We've got ones that have got multiple sites, small sites, and they'll do different activities depending on the facilities they've got available. But there's and they'll do subsidised riding lessons to make sure that people from every background can access it.
Yeah. And the nice thing is, I think with the inner city ones as well, what they tend to do is they will rotate the horses as well, so that keeps the horses fresh. Not as in a silly, let's go do the funky chicken.
But they get a holiday.
But that's it. So they do often rotate the horses as well, so that
they can have holidays.
They have holidays as well. So it works well, doesn't it?
But just thinking about that, thought of horses being elitist, I think that's something to just mention, is that with the livery yards, because livery yards aren't licensed and are a completely unregulated business. We are at the moment finding that there's becoming a bit of a gap. So we've got kind of like your centres, your livery yards who are trying to do things properly. So they're insured. They've become BHS approved. They've got their, all their paperwork in place, etc., and they are having to charge accordingly because they're doing all these things correctly. Then you've got places that offer livery that probably haven't got insurance, haven't got livery contracts with their liveries. There's a lot of bad practice happening. There's no safeguarding in place, but they can obviously afford to charge less because they don't have
they
those.
Don't have the same overheads.
Yeah, and this is a problem. And that's why, the licensing of livery yards would be something that we would
certainly
thoroughly welcome.
Yeah, and that's it. I think a mistake sometimes parents might make when their child's wanting to learn to ride as well is they might enter into a loan agreement because they work out, well, it's cheaper if I share a pony that's kept in a field down the road for 30 quid a week and my child can ride it 5 times a week. It might cost me X at a riding school. So sometimes a parent will mistakenly see that as being a better benefit. Whereas if they maybe go to a correctly licensed and approved riding school, it is a much, much better investment in keeping your child safe and your child learning the correct way to do things.
Are there any issues with other regards that you're seeing, or is there anything else that we can expand on that? Because we haven't really touched on that side of it, is there?
So one thing that we do, that our welfare and horse care team see a lot of, is horses that are significantly overweight. And it's really hard as an owner to work your horse, 5 or 6 days a week. It's hard to manage horses' weight. So one thing that I would say, as a horse owner, if you're struggling for time, approach a local riding school. They offer livery. A lot of them will offer livery. Some will offer working livery contracts. And I feel like they get a really bad rep. Riding schools do, but they're in the hands of professionals with a structured routine, and they would be paired with the correct level of rider for your horse, and you can have working livery agreements. So it might be that you ride your horse 4 days a week and the riding school use them once or twice a week, however that riding school operates. But it's a brilliant way for your horse to teach people to ride, which is just fantastic. Your horse gets exercise, meaning their welfare needs are met, and the riding school can utilise the horse for their riding school, and you get all the knowledge that riding school can bring you. Because I think people forget they are just the centre of knowledge in terms of grassroots participation.
It's amazing. It really is amazing, and what the BHS are doing and what they've done and what they're doing to keep the industry going. And I know it's a massive job, and it's probably a thankless job as well. But yeah, thank you so much for doing what you do. And
Our centres are fab, aren't they?
Yeah.
They do say thank you.
Yeah, we're lucky. Yeah, we work with really, really lovely people,
Really
don't we?
nice. And that's why we love doing this job, because we're supporting centres that just care about horses and teaching people to ride, and that's all we care about.
Yeah, and that's what it's about at the end of the day, isn't it? And making sure that stays alive, because it needs to. It's very important. I think we all think that. But thank you so much, both of you, for coming on, taking the time.
Thank you. Yeah, it was good. It was really good.
Amazing, and I hope everybody watching this has learned a lot, and for them not to be scared to contact you. Please, you want the contact, you want to help. This is what you're here for, and I hope a lot of people will understand that. But I think we will need a part 2, possibly a part 3, or 4, 5, or 6.
Yeah, series.
Yeah, we'll do a series, BHS podcast. But yeah, thank you so much, and hopefully we will see you again.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.